Hey, welcome back to another video nobody asked for. I'm Sarah, and today I'm gonna be doing something I've never done on this channel before. I'm gonna be doing a play review. As a thespian, I feel like it's my civic duty to do this. Actually, it's not. I just saw this one play on the internet recently and I really wanted to review it. So this is not, just some regular run-of-the-mill Broadway play that, everybody has access to. This is a very special play that was put on just this past Sunday, on Easter Sunday. This play was done by Transformation Church, led by Pastor Mike Todd, and it was called Ransom. If you're on the Christian sector of the internet, you might have heard of it. If you look up Transformation Church Easter, you'll definitely see a lot of different videos saying a lot of different things about this play, and I wanted to put my 2 cents in it as a Christian and a thespian. So let's just dive right in, because this is gonna be a very long video, because I have a lot of pages of notes, because I didn't just watch the clips that were put on the internet. Oh no, baby. I watched the whole hour in like however long, like it's like an hour and a half long of the thing. And I've seen it like twice. If I were to rate this play, I would definitely give it a 4 out of 10. So I'd give it a 4 out of 10 because the production quality was definitely there. For anybody who's seen any clips, you could definitely see the production quality was just very top tier. You could tell that they had a really big budget and they used it as much as they could. They really rang out all the millions of dollars. You know where their tithe dollars went that year. You know where they went. They went into that play. The singing was great. The dancing, although not at all appropriate for a church service on Resurrection Day, was good. The ending, absolutely beautiful.
Amazing, show-stopping, spectacular.
Like, if you can find a video of the ending, I'd recommend watching that because it was just so breathtaking. They were singing the song that I'm pretty sure is called He's Not Dead. I don't know if it's a popular song or not because I had never heard of it before. And it did have some great comedic moments, so I will give them props there. But on the flip side, while the production value was there was just not enough Jesus in it at all. You would think that a play being done about the story of the gospel, from the fall of man all the way to Jesus's resurrection, Jesus's redemption of mankind, would be Christ-centered, would be about Jesus. There were way more scenes that had Satan in it than had Jesus in it, which was really weird. I didn't understand that. It's like, I thought this was about Jesus. Why are we seeing so much of the devil? In addition to not at all being Christ-centered for a play that's supposed to be about how Christ saved humanity, there were also way too many biblical inaccuracies. Like, there was this one sword fighting scene where Satan kills Jesus, which is completely inaccurate. That doesn't happen in the Bible at all. I mean, like, the sword fighting in and of itself, I'm like, okay, use your creative freedom the way you want to, but the fact that Satan kills Jesus was just mind-boggling to me. And if I didn't know the Bible, I would be like, oh, I didn't realize Jesus died on the cross because Satan killed him. So you're just misrepresenting the gospel with inaccuracies like that. And also, they completely left out the Garden of Eden. Very early on in the play, we see the fall of man, how sin entered the world, but they completely leave out the Garden of Eden. They also don't have Adam and Eve. They just have a princess that's supposed to represent humanity. Just certain inaccuracies that definitely can make it very confusing and definitely misrepresent the gospel, which I do think is problematic, to say the least. On top of that, another qualm I had is that this is an Easter Sunday service. This is being performed at a church, yet at no point in the play do we see any Bible verses being displayed. You would think, with this being a church, especially on Easter, throughout the play they'd be talking about either talking about Bible verses within the lines, within the songs, or even having them displayed on screen, because there were many different points where they used video projections. Like, they had videos along with like actual acting on stage, So like at no point did we see any Bible verses being displayed, and that would have been really nice, especially since at the beginning Mike Todd essentially gives like this disclaimer about the show in and of itself, and he's like, basically what the writing is saying is read your Bible. And it's like, that's so amazing that you're telling people, you know, this is based on the gospel, but and we added some extra stuff, but you know, also read your Bible. It's like you could have, for certain scenes, you could have put read this Bible verse to better understand this scene, read this Bible verse to better understand this scene, read this Bible verse to better understand this scene. I would have really liked that. Like, people could have like taken notes, or people were taking videos. So like, if you have it on video, you can go back and read these actual verses so you can see these scenes within the context of the Bible. That would have been very helpful. Well, the fact that Jesus' disciples make no appearance whatsoever was pretty strange, and like, they're pretty important to this story, but you know, whatever. Let's start from the beginning. I'm mostly going to be just talking about things I think they could have done differently that would have made the story better, and just general issues I had with it in certain scenes in the play. And then I'm also going to mention a few things that I'm like, I feel like this was done well, and I feel like that was done well. This play could have been so good, but because of the plethora of issues, it kind of fell short, at least in my eyes anyway. So one of the biggest issues I had was the fact that there was no Garden of Eden. Not Eden, Eden. Garden of Eden was the garden that God walked with Adam and Eve in. You could see that within the first couple of chapters of Genesis. And then once sin entered the world, he kicked them out of the garden. So they call heaven in this play Hevinia, and they call hell Heldra. And they kind of make it seem like the princess is supposed to represent humanity. Also, that's another thing that's confusing. There's no Adam and Eve, there's just the princess, and they call her the princess of the people, which is weird because Adam and Eve were the only people on earth when the fall happened. So calling her the princess of the people is weird. I feel like we should have just had Adam and Eve. Would have made it a lot simpler, but whatever. So it kind of seems like Eve is among a bunch of angels or people, so to speak. That's not made very clear whether the people in Hevinia are actual human beings or if they're angels. She gets banished from Hevinia, and that's just not biblically accurate. Adam and Eve weren't banished from heaven, they were banished from the Garden of Eden, which was on earth, not in heaven. One of the first scenes we see in heaven with the princess is a scene after Satan gets kicked out of heaven, Heavenio, whatever, and they play the song Sunshine in My Pocket. I just thought it was pretty weird that they were playing a secular song, and by secular I mean a song that isn't Christian. A secular song in heaven, when in heaven the only songs that are sung are songs of worship and praise to God. People are dancing for God, singing for God. They're not just dancing and singing to entertain themselves or some sort of audience. So I thought that was pretty strange. I'm like, if you're gonna use any song, why don't you use a popular Christian worship or praise song? There are plenty of worship songs that are hype that you could dance to. So why don't you use one of those songs that already exist? You know how many Christian rap songs they've been putting out that I keep coming across on Instagram? Too many for them not to have been utilized within this play. Like, it's so strange, the lack of Christian songs that are utilized within this play versus secular songs. That scene in and of itself, with Sunshine in My Pocket being played while people were dancing with the princess and Hevinia, was just added for entertainment value, not to push along the plot, because it does absolutely nothing for the story whatsoever. They also have this ball scene, the scene where the king who represents God is dancing with the princess who represents mankind. You know, it kind of shows their relationship and their closeness. And they utilized the song Golden Hour. I mean, it wasn't sung, they just played an instrumental of it And I found that to be kind of weird. I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to show the love between God and mankind because God so loved the world. But maybe use a different side? Or just use a plain instrumental. But Golden Hour was kind of weird because, you know, they're dancing together. So it gives off couple vibes as opposed to like father and child vibes. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky, but that's how it came across to me. God's love for us is called agape, and it goes way beyond romantic love, which I think is called eros. Don't quote me on that, please. But another thing that bothered me because of the biblical inaccuracy was the fact that pride tempts the princess to sin. I just thought that was strange because in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 3, in the fall of man, the devil tempts Eve to sin. I don't know why they didn't just keep that the same. That would have been so easy. We've already been introduced to Satan as a character at this point. On top of that, we don't even find out that that man who's tempting her is pride until way later in the play, in the second half of the play. We don't know at all that that is pride. So it just seems like some random guy who looked at her after the ball ended, tempted her. It didn't really make any sense. You have to tell us this ahead of time. What happens is, you know, pride tempts her to take the jewel of wisdom out of the box, and then you see this big dance party in hell with "We're gonna die young." Honestly, truly, from a creative standpoint, I feel like the scene would have been a lot better if like Satan, that's Satan is supposed to. If Satan came in and tried to tempt Eve, and Eve's like, I don't know, but God said, you know, like it says in the Bible, but God said we're not supposed to touch the jewel of wisdom, or we'll die, right? And or they could have just kept it the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. I don't know whether to change the jewel of wisdom, but whatever. If they could have just had Satan try to tempt the princess, and the princess be like, oh, well, God said, and then I think before the princess makes the decision to take the jewel, the Die Young song could have played to show how the devil utilizes very enticing things to tempt us to sin. You know, the devil makes sin very fun and exciting. Because after the song is over, we could have seen her take the jewel from the box. That would have been beautiful. I'm like, that would have been such a better execution of that scene, in my personal opinion. From a creative standpoint, I would have liked that better. Because, like, oh, okay, you know, the devil enticed her. That's how she got her. My next qualm is after Eve gets tempted by the devil and takes the jewel of wisdom, and, you know, essentially puts a wall around his castle and has the wall guarded. And at one point, he says that the only way that people can come into the palace is if they bring their best sacrifice. But that's never explained. And I feel like the fact that it's not explained is very problematic. That was such a huge thing in the Bible, people presenting sacrifices to God whenever they sin. So, for anyone who doesn't know, back before Jesus died on the cross, essentially, people would, you know, take their best goat or sheep, or if you were poor, you take a dove, and you would like kill it and you'd bring it to the priest, and the priest would present that offering to the temple, and, you know, the fire would go up, and, you know, God's anger would be subsided. The fact that the importance of the sacrifice was never explained, especially since the sacrifice is essentially foreshadowing Jesus' death on the cross. It shouldn't have just been a line within the king's monologue that we never really hear about ever again, because that is so important. That was a very missed opportunity, in my opinion. One thing that I did like was after the king like decides to build the wall, the princess is singing, and she's talking about how her actions built that wall between her and the king, because they no longer have the relationship they had before. Because, you know, in the Bible, once Adam and Eve get kicked out of the garden, they no longer are able to physically walk with God. Because before, God would physically walk with them in the garden, but after sin entered the world, God was like, I can't be around you because y'all put sin up in the air. And I'm like that. there was a separation between God and man because of sin, and essentially that's what the wall is supposed to represent. The wall is supposed to represent the separation between God and man, or in this case, the king and the princess. In this scene, like, she's singing the song. It's real. I don't remember what the song is called, but it was really pretty. And there are people like with their arms linked, like as to like guard the wall, and like we can see the wall in the background get higher and higher and higher, and the people, they kind of shift to wherever the king is. So like here's the princess right here, here's the wall, here's the king, and anytime the king moves, like the people kind of shift in front as to like make act like a human wall. I thought that imagery was very nice. I thought it was very beautiful, and it definitely kind of shows that brokenness within the relationship, and I definitely could appreciate that. So another thing that I did like that happened after the fall was God's vulnerability. Like there's a part where God is talking about, I think he's actually singing at this point, I don't remember. And I feel like that speech was really nice, and it was really heartfelt, and I really appreciated the vulnerability, and I appreciated the mix of emotions. Like we saw God being heartbroken that sin entered the world, but also being very angry. I do think that's nice because, where do you think we get our emotions from? God. So it was nice to see that on display. But there was one line that had me like,
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
and it was a line where God said, "She made loving her complicated," and he shouted, he was like, "She made loving her complicated." I was like, he's her father, he's not her man. It just came off very cringy to me. Lower your voice, lower your tone, change the line. It was weird to me. After this, we move on to the scene where the princess visits the dragon, the devil, in Heldra, aka Hell. And that scene was just way too long. It was way too. In fact, a lot of the Hell scenes, the scenes that took place in Hell, or Heldra as they called it, were just way too long. Especially the last Hell scene, but I'll get to that. I'll get to that later. In this Hell scene, the devil essentially makes a deal with Eve, saying, "You're gonna work for me, and I'll get you back into heaven." Yeah, which was a total lie because the devil is a liar. They played Diva by Beyonce. I'm not gonna lie, it was very, very unsettling. Like it literally didn't feel right in my spirit when they're playing that. It wasn't solely the song, but it was just the energy. I'm gonna say it, and you're gonna probably hate me for saying this, but the demonic energy surrounding that whole scene just did not feel right in my spirit. It really didn't. And I know it's like, well, it's in hell, so of course it's gonna have demonic energy. I understood their goal, but there's no need for unholy energy up in the church. So then, like, after they play the Diva Beyonce song, it goes into the song Everybody Mad. And I was like, why are you even playing this song? Like at this point, you're just proving that this is more about entertainment than it is about the gospel. This demon that I guess is called jealousy, he was in a red do-rag, and he was wearing them red goofy viral cartoon boots. I'll insert a picture. What was the need for Everybody Mad? I mean, granted, when they played Diva and they played like Everybody Mad, they did change some of the lyrics so it could be less. No, not really. That whole section didn't move along the plot at all. We could have just seen the devil lying to the princess and then cut to the next scene. All the hell scenes, especially this hell scene, there was so much clapping and cheering, and there was even one comment after that scene ended saying, "You better go ahead." And I was like, are we really saying you better go ahead to a demon singing Everybody Mad? A demon in hell? I know some people would probably argue, well, they're just cheering for the performance. It's not like it's actual Satan, it's actual devil. To that, I say, please stop fooling yourself. After that, there was this song sung by this woman called "Kill the Dragon, Save the Girl," which that was weird to me. I get what they were going for, but I feel like it should be "Kill the Dragon, Save the World," because at the end of the day, the princess is supposed to represent humanity, so it should be about saving humanity in and of itself, not just this one girl. Maybe I'm just nitpicking, but I mean, the song in and of itself and the performer, she was fine. The devil essentially traps the princess in hell, and Jesus is sent to go save. Jesus, aka the prince, is sent to go save her, and there is a sword fight between Jesus and Satan. Now, I don't really have a problem with a sword fight in and of itself. I just think the placement of the sword fight and how the sword fight ended was really problematic. First of all, the fact that Satan kills Jesus at the end of the sword fight.
Excuse me?
Criminal. Blasphemous. Completely unbiblical. Not at all okay. Just a huge misrepresentation of the gospel. If this is supposed to be for unbelievers, people who don't know the Bible very well, seeing that is definitely going to make you go, oh, I didn't realize Jesus died on the cross because Satan killed him. No, that's not at all accurate. It had the sword fight between Satan and Jesus. Jesus takes the girl off the cross. And some people are like, why was the girl on the cross? But I kind of get why the girl was on the cross. I mean, it was weird, but I get it because she was on a cross in hell. He took the girl off the cross to essentially replace her on the cross because Jesus bore all our sins on the cross. Like, Jesus took our punishment for us, which is why I get why he took her off the cross. It's just the fact that in the sword fight, Satan kills Jesus, and then we see Jesus on the cross. I was like, if anything, including a sword fight in this play, they should have had Jesus take her off the cross, go on the cross himself, you know, to bear that burden and to bear God's wrath that was rightfully meant for mankind, because we're full of sin because of the fall of Adam and Eve. And then after that, once Jesus is on the cross, you know, then have a sword fight between Jesus and death, or Jesus and sin. And then at the end, Jesus wins, thus resurrected. You know, sin has lost its power, death has lost its sting. That would have made a lot more sense. Jesus wasn't on the cross because of Satan. Jesus was on the cross because of mankind. Moving on, there's a song right after that where the princess is, you know, upset because Jesus is dead, and she's singing the song that I can only assume is called Always Enough for Me. I've never heard of it, so I don't know whether or not it's like an actual Christian song that I just have never heard of, or if it's an original song. Either way, it was a very beautiful song. And this is the first time we actually hear the name of like actual Jesus being mentioned. Almost an hour into this hour and a half play, or almost hour and a half play, which is very sad when Jesus is supposed to be the main character, but I digress. And during this song, you actually see images of Jesus's crucifixion. Well, not images, but you see a video. I'm not sure which Jesus movie they took it from. It was very graphic. Here comes the last and longest hell scene. In this scene, the dragon, Satan, and the demons celebrate Jesus' death because they're like, we won, victory is ours, essentially. And like I mentioned before, this scene was way too long. Like, this scene was literally 10 minutes long. Like, it's basically 10 minutes of demons talking about their booties, demons talking about how we gonna trick them, get lust and whatnot. It was basically demons roasting each other, pride making a speech, and more secular music. One of the demons, jealousy, the demon that's supposed to represent jealousy, sings "Wanna Love Me" from Dreamgirls twice. In that we got the original and then we got the reprise. We couldn't flesh out anything for Jesus. Couldn't show more of Jesus's life. Couldn't show any of Jesus's disciples, right? We can have a reprise of "You're Gonna Love Me" sung by a demon that's supposed to represent jealousy, Mr. Goofy Boots that I mentioned earlier. That's the one that was singing it. Absolutely ridiculous. The only part in that 10-minute scene that pushed forward the plot was Pride's speech. Like, Pride, the person who originally deceived the princess, got her to sin, comes back and makes this whole big speech which honestly, for the most part, the speech was pretty good. Like, it was a pretty solid speech. Like, initially, Pride's talking about how, like, the fall, like, before the fall, there's pride, and how sin tends to stem from pride and everything. It was all fun and games until Mike Todd makes a clear as day jab at his critics. Like, it seemed like that part was personal. I'll insert a clip because if you know, you know.
Because with enough time, space, and opportunity, their simple nature will turn into simple actions. And that, my friends, is where the magic happens. They'll be so busy pointing fingers, Bible thumping, trolling comments, and making YouTube videos judging one another that they won't even realize they're.
It was just a clear as day jab at his critics, and it's just like, why are you making this personal? This play is supposed to be about the gospel. Moving on, at the end of this hell scene, there's a song that happens. The devil's like, who gonna stop me? Jesus comes back, and there's a song that says, I'm back and I'm better. And I'm just like, interesting choice of words for those lyrics. Because on one hand, you know, as a Christian, I kind of get it, because when Jesus resurrected from the dead, he came back in his full glory. Because while Jesus was able to do miracles while he was on earth and whatnot, he was still very limited because he was in his human body. When he came back in his full glory. So, you know, that's why you notice after Jesus raised from the dead, like, he would appear and then he would just disappear out of nowhere, because he was back in his full glory. They never mentioned that in the song lyrics at all, so the I'm back and I'm better kind of falls short, because it's like, was Jesus lacking before, you know? But I'll let it slide, maybe. And during this part, Jesus is kind of running around, like, practically beating his chest. I'm like, that's interesting. I guess maybe I'll let it slide. I don't know. Like, I get it, but it's just at the same time, Jesus is humble. So him going like, yeah, was a bit strange to me. That's all. Like, it just came off a little bit prideful. But I'll let it slide. And then my favorite scene was the scene, and I'll insert a clip because it's just so beautiful. This is on the third day, so Jesus already resurrected and everything, and the princess is crying and everything, and the angels are singing, he's not dead, he's alive, why are you crying? Like, it's so beautiful. Like, there's this, like, beautiful, like, I don't know if it's fog or haze, I don't know what the difference between fog and haze, oh well, but yeah, and they're all wearing white, and it's so beautiful. And then we see Jesus come and hug her, and then we see God hug and embrace her, and all three of them are standing. Like, it's such a beautiful moment. Seeing that definitely made me think that y'all could have just took this scene and performed it, and that's it. Like, that's all you had to do. That scene was so beautiful and so powerful. I just didn't understand why they had to add all these extra theatrics when you didn't have to. You already have this wonderful story that is sufficient on its own. So adding these extra theatrics and giving the devil all this extra playtime for the sake of entertainment was just strange. You know, I understand creative freedom, but when your creative freedom goes as far to, like, change big parts of the original material, misrepresenting the material you're modeling it after, it definitely raises some red flags. It definitely makes it questionable. Honestly, truly, this play would have gotten a 10 out of 10 for me if all we had was the fall without the secular music, Jesus dying on the cross without being killed by the devil, because that's biblically inaccurate, and then him raising from the dead with that beautiful scene. They had 10 out of 10. That's all they needed. They didn't need that extra stuff, you know? It would have been perfect. They added all these extra scenes with the devil and whatnot. The thing is, none of that stuff even pushed the story along. They solely added it for entertainment purposes, which proves that a big part of their goal was attention, not preaching the gospel. That's the part that saddens me the most, because all we needed was the fall, Jesus' death, and Jesus' resurrection. That's it. We didn't need such a heavy focus on the devil. All in all, I do think the production value is great. The performers stunning. Like they really did their job, so I can give them their flowers there. But I definitely am giving this play a bombastic side eye.
Bombastic side eye.
For certain parts, and their focus, their predominant focus on entertainment over preaching the gospel. You know, I think the main focus should have just been centering Christ in the whole thing and preaching the story of the gospel. It shouldn't have been this extra mumbo jumbo. If you didn't hate this video and you actually made it to the end, because you're a trooper, you can like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.